You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where England have been hammered. India 2-1 up in the series. England's biggest defeat since World War II, I saw someone tweet. Although technically England did win World War II, so maybe it's even worse than that. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Ross Legg. How you doing, Ross?
Oh, well, I'm absolutely ecstatic for my Indian boys today, and it's great to see the best team in the world come out on top, isn't it? So,
And we've got DJ from the Edges and Sledges podcast joining us as well. How you doing, DJ?
I'm well, Jack. I'm pleased to join you guys on a day that India's actually done well. I think the last time we spoke was when India had been bowled out for 81 at Headingley. So it's a slightly better day for Indian cricket fans and Indian cricket podcasters. So.
I'm assuming you'll be doing a roundup yourself. So just right at the top of the show, do you want to let people know where they can find your podcast?
Yeah, sure. So we're the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We focus on Indian cricket and the IPL. There's three of us that run the show, Varun, Ashwin and myself. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at One Tip, One Hand. So if an Indian cricket listener, Indian cricket fan, you know what that means. It's the gully cricket rule, obviously. And we're on Spotify, Apple, wherever else. YouTube as well. We have a YouTube channel called the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. So give us a follow. And I'll try not to gloat too much on this show. I'll save that for our show, which we're recording later today.
No, gloat away. I think you deserve to gloat if you beat a team by, I can't remember what it was in the end, 410 runs or something like that. Notes from our show: if you want to follow the Cricket Podcast, you should just click subscribe and follow. That's what I should have said in that order. And we're on social media at the Cricket Pod if you want to hear our thoughts as games develop. Today, Ross, in the cricket, this is what happened. England started on the back foot and pretty much only went backwards from there. They went through the stumps, through the wicketkeeper, into the changing room. They were unable to take early wickets. Even Kuldeep Yadav was smacking the spinners down the ground at one point. When they did take a wicket, it turned out to be the worst possible thing they could have done because Jaiswal came back into bat. He added another 100 to his overnight score of 104. There was one minor negative or positive for England. I mean, it depends which way you're looking at it. When Shubman Gill was run out 9 runs short of a century. But that just meant that Sarfraz could come in and continue what he did in the first innings with another 50. This time not out, no Jadeja to terminate his innings prematurely. There was a dummy declaration before Rohit finally did call them in with the lead at about 540 runs.
yeah, I reckon
And it was hard.
Yeah,
I think we were waiting for Ashwin's flight to land because he had a charter flight that was coming back. So I think it's probably that he was just on hitting the tarmac around then, so he decided to keep them up.
and that's the beauty of baseball, isn't it, DJ? They were so scared that they needed to bring Ashwin back in to make sure they could defend 556 runs or whatever it was.
I mean, 556 is just proof of the fear that baseball inspires in opposition teams. So I can't wait for Ben Duckett's conference.
I mean, I was surprised that they declared, if I'm perfectly honest, they should have gone for like 750 because they still would have been absolutely fine.
It was hard to see what England were thinking when they came out to bat. There was a run out pretty early. They didn't really try and score. 3 more wickets fell before the end of the 12th over, and the match was all but over. And then it was officially over about 20 overs after that when the final wicket fell. Mark Wood slogged some runs. That was good. Pretty embarrassing defeat for England. DJ, you can get the first dibs on this. Yesterday was probably India's best day of the series in terms of turning a test match round or breaking a test match in favour of India. But today has to be a close second, right?
Yeah, I mean, today was just, I think, driving home the advantage, which India had failed to do for large parts of the series. Obviously, let England off the hook in the first test. Yesterday was a test of their character, and I saw you guys do the show yesterday. And I mean, it was a bit of a turnaround, not helped by some of the shots played, but I think probably too much emphasis on that from English cricket writers and English cricket fans. I mean, Joe Root's been successful with that shot, but let's not go there. Today was a case of grinding the opposition into dust, really, which is what the likes of Pujara and Rahane were well known for doing. It was done in a slightly different fashion by Jaiswal, I would say, and then Sarfaraz, who averages more than Bradman, one test match into his career. And it was, I mean, 430 for 4 declared is just a perfect way of setting the game up. It's how Test cricket would be played in the old days, pre baseball, where you would make sure that you put the game beyond the opposition's reach. Why would you let them in when you've got your foot on their throat? So no matter what bravado or I guess hubris the English team put forward, it was sensible cricket, and they executed exactly what they needed to do. Just bat England out of the game and make sure that they could attack throughout the fourth innings. We'd almost thought it would go to a fifth day, as they tend to do when there was a session and a half left on day 4. But England, I don't know whether they were confused. I guess the beauty of this is you could say they didn't baseball it, and that's why they lost, because they sort of defended. And there was a point at which Jasprit Bumrah, and he said this in Hindi to Rohit after an over, was why aren't they going after the bowling? Ye maar kyun nahi rahe? Which is what he said, and because they're expecting them to come out every ball smashing it. And Bumrah just had a laugh to himself. And Root got 7 of 40 or something like that, which is slightly confused, I think.
They said Root didn't have, that baseball wasn't working for Root. I think this was a great riposte from Root. He showed that he can fail playing the old way and fail playing the new way. Right.
Yes, mate.
England's worst defeat since World War II. I did point out that we won World War II. So the question for you is, what was worse, this or World War II?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Skidberry's article on it later, if I'm perfectly honest. When it comes to this, again, it's just a game. At the end of the day, literally, it's just a test match. There is a lot of people having massive meltdowns, almost like midlife crisis. At least 5 people I've seen on Twitter have divorced their wife after this piece. It is what it is, right? I think you've run into, again, an India team who are continuously underrated by Western media. I just think it is always that bit of just they're always somewhat surprised, I think, at how brilliant India are, because they get wrapped up in kind of the arrogance which we were talking about yesterday. England were meek today. I think that the piece on, we have to have intelligent cricket, situational cricket, aggressive cricket, defensive cricket, all simultaneously put into a big wrap and put a little bow on it. And it ultimately failed today. But they were never going to chase down 556 runs or whatever it was going to be. But to be bowled out in the fashion that they were today, it was almost, it wasn't almost, it was embarrassing for them. But India also deserve it. I think India, DJ, as you said, turned the tide really nicely yesterday. There has been chances for England to get on top in this test match, right? We dropped catches in the first innings. We didn't review certain DRS decisions. And then we threw away what was a really strong 207 for 2 position. England can only look back on this and be just like, well, we had a hand to play, but India were phenomenal again. And I think that shows you an awful lot of what a batsman can do to a team. Jaiswal coming out today, was it 12 sixes he hit in that innings? It was belligerent, and it was absolutely epic to watch, and to have someone who is he 23? Is he not even 23 yet? He's got 2 double tons. You're just like, all right. So Rahane's gone, Pujara's gone. You need to have some replacements. So you've got kind of Jaiswal just be like, I reckon I'm pretty good at cricket. Shubman Gill, pretty good at cricket. And it was, incredible.
And Sarfaraz, who couldn't get a game either. I mean, this is kind of an India C batting lineup in a way. There's no Rahul. There's no, Iyer's been dropped. The guy who got a test 100 on debut. No Virat Kohli. There's, Patidar played 2 awful shots in this game. And they've still come out batting pretty well. So, it shows you the depth of the Indian lineup.
I'm gonna object to that a little bit. I think this is not a C team. I think Jaiswal and Sarfaraz and Rohit are all. Sarfaraz
he's on debut.
Yeah. But the guy should have been picked. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a stat I saw today about Sarfraz and Jaiswal. In the history of first-class cricket, they have the second and fourth highest averages of players to have scored more than 2,000 runs. Now, I know that isn't Test cricket, and they're
Yeah.
very early in their Test cricket journeys, but you couldn't really have higher pedigree coming into international cricket than that. Like
Yeah.
one of them is second to Don Bradman.
Yeah.
And the other one is 2 places behind that. I don't know who sits in between. Probably some.
And there was lots of chat about Sarfaraz in the Australia Test series before the last World Test Championship final, the one that India played in February 23, I think. And he was unlucky not to be picked for that. He's been picked because of injuries here. So the question is, what happens when, I guess, the first choice players all come back? When a Kohli comes back or a Rahul comes back, what do you do? I mean, Patidar has probably given them a little bit of a break because he hasn't done well. So I suppose Sarfaraz will take his spot. But he just looked at home. Other than him being cut short by Jadeja, as you guys pointed out, he just looked like he looked $1 million.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm taking away from this test is that the future of Indian Test cricket looks pretty bright. I think you can swap Kohli for Gill, but that's like Gill's got a 90 and 100 in the last 2 tests. I know that he had a bit of a lean run coming into that, but that's not too bad. If you're thinking we're going to drop that guy to fit in Virat Kohli, that's fine. And then probably Rishabh Pant. Well, not probably. Hopefully Rishabh Pant comes back in for Jerv Jarrell, and
he's done pretty well as well. If let's be fair.
Yeah,
gloves.
had a great test.
Yeah, been a really, really good test match. Yeah, really good. And then who needs to be worried? Shreyas Iyer. I think he needs to be worried.
Can we talk about the player of the match? It's just been announced it was Ravindra Jadeja, Ross. You're a big Jaiswal fan. Do you feel like your man was robbed?
Well, Jadeja got a century in the first innings, and what, a fifer in the, and how many wickets did he end up in the game? Like 8. What did he get in the first innings? I can't remember.
I'll get it up, but let's say 8.
But Jadeja is unbelievable, right? I think he is one of those people who, again, you're just like, how can you play against this guy all the time when he's in the mood? Like, he's a brilliant spinner in all formats of the game, incredible fielder. Like, he's not even at full fitness in this game, right? He was just like, I can't be diving around in the field because I'm not quite 100%. And yet he rocks out with a man of the match performance, and just like, great. And he's also someone who, I think that he's got an unbelievably cool celebration, and that goes a long way, because anyone who's going to have the bravado to do the sword celebration has to be good. But 2, has the flexibility and technique to actually bat in multiple positions and multiple situations. And what an asset to have in that team. He's like almost like the best utility player of all time, and yet is one of those people you can just put him in any situation, he's probably going to do okay. Jaiswal, however, I do feel is a little bit hard done by to hit a double century in the style that he did, and just to take the game away. There was no guarantee, and I know it sounds absolutely ludicrous, but India's kind of 150 odd lead that they had in the 3rd innings.
126.
126. Yeah, 126. Great. Thank you, DJ. It was that is, as much as this is a ridiculous thing to say, it's not a guaranteed winning position. Jaiswal made that a guaranteed winning position in 2 hours, and you were just like, this guy has just taken it away. And then, as you say, he's going to go out for a smoke and a whiskey down the back and just retire off injured, and then come back in when he fancies hitting another century the next day. Like, it's incredible. My view is that Jaiswal was man of the match here, but I can understand like wickets and runs together combining for Jadeja.
So he hasn't been given the man of the match in 2 test matches that he scored double hundreds in now, because Bumrah won it in the last one. He's got back-to-back double hundreds, hasn't he?
Yes, I think he's done,
which is bonkers. I mean, and he hasn't won the man of the match in either game.
And I really want this to come out the right way, but that is Asian parenting for you, because
you need to get 350.
Yeah, you're not quite good enough. You're a qualified doctor. You've hit a double century. You've done this. You're still not good enough. So I think that they're playing it in the right way. They're looking after that 22-year-old in the right way.
But in all seriousness, I think it's a reflection on the pitches. And obviously, the last time the series happened, all the chat was about the turning pitches and this and that. The fact that the bowlers are winning these these awards is because the pitches are flat decks that they're doing this on. So I
Yeah.
think that's the serious point there, which they're not counting the double hundred in the third innings of a game as an impressive performance. Which, I mean, it's crazy to think of.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the 100 from Jadeja was nice as well, so that probably is factored into whatever matrix they use. But I think your point on the pitch is a good one, and I think what it does as well is you can see where the rage of the English media is largely directed, and that is squarely at the team and the concept of Bazball rather than a third factor, the pitches, as it was in 2021. Now that 2021 England team was probably worse than this England team, but at the time, all the rage and most of the talking points were directed at the surfaces the series was played on. You can't say the same here. I mean, I think they've been 3 pretty good test decks, to be honest. If you can bat, you'll score runs, and if you're Jasprit Brummer, you'll take wickets, or if you're Tom Hartley, you'll take wickets. No complaints there. I don't think
And if you're
anyone
Joe Root, you'll
have
bowl
any-
overs, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Also
Go on.
that part, Jack, just in terms of like where the English media and their aggression is kind of pointed at and where they're trying to blame it. They've tried to shoehorn DRS into the conversation. they've tried to be just like, well, it's clearly going over the stumps. It's just like, well, do you know what? I'm going to trust the DRS technology over Barry from Brentford. You know, like that is just unfortunately that's what I'm going to do. Someone who's like thousands of miles away, going, do you know what? That doesn't look out to me. It's just like, oh, well, sorry, mate. It's literally a John, and we've got to talk about Johnny Bairstow in the second part of this show because, mate,
we'll do England's batting in the second part.
Can we get Harry Brook back, please?
The DRS truther movement that's developing is. Look, I'm really there for it. People shout. It started with Virat Kohli shouting at stumps, and now it's like people are openly doing press conferences at the end of the game, being like, "That wasn't out." When you've got multiple angles, it clearly was out. Anyway, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we'll come back. And Ross, you can kick us off with some chat about Johnny Bairstow.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going through India's absolute destruction of the England cricket team in the third test of their ongoing series. Just a reminder to people watching on YouTube, make sure you're clicking like and subscribe. We've got a good audience in for today, and we want as many people to come back. Yeah, we want as many people to come back as possible. Ross, you mentioned Johnny Bairstow. It's been a lean series so far.
Yeah, I think in terms of just England's senior players, it's been a bit of a lean series really for them. You've seen some of the less experienced people kind of step up. I know that Zach Crawley's been given about 100 games to kind of find his feet in it, but he's still relatively inexperienced, right? You can potentially argue. But Johnny Bairstow looks at kind of sixes and sevens, doesn't he? He doesn't look like he's there. And I think since the leg break, no one can get over the fact that he was unbelievable when he hit, 8 centuries in that calendar year. But Jack, you were talking yesterday around kind of, are we seeing the slight decline of Joe Root's kind of ability away from the mountain that he kind of he conquered? Johnny Bairstow, unfortunately, when he looks out of form, he looks really bad, and it's really quite difficult. And I think that I'm really, really excited for the England management coming out and saying, well, Johnny Bairstow plays better when he's got a point to prove. I would just like him to hit some runs. That would be quite nice. I think that would be not too much to ask. What I do want to make sure our English listeners are kind of aware of is that it's only 2-1. And I know this has been an absolute shellacking, but the fact that England have got a win on the board is pretty impressive. England have kind of pushed kind of the envelope, I think, a little bit in terms of what is possible. And yeah, all is not lost. It doesn't mean England are going to turn around and win this game, win this Test Series 3-2. But I think a lot of sensationalism is probably going to come out in the next kind of 24, 48 hours around this whole thing. And just to remind ourselves that it's only 2-1. It's kind of okay. But Harry Brook coming in would be delightful.
Yeah, I think that's probably a point worth making as well. Like it's not the end of cricket that England have been beaten here, even though it's a really, really bad beating. And even though that at the end of day 2, the match was well up for grabs, and it sort of feels doubly bad because from an England perspective, a lot of people probably went to bed on Friday night expecting to wake up to a score near parity and maybe some entertaining cricket, and instead they woke up to complete oblivion. And those same people will have gone to bed on Saturday kind of depressed, but maybe hoping for a miracle. They'll have woken up seeing that England only managed to take 2 further wickets, got pounded again. I think England went out to bat about 8 in the morning, which is probably peak tune-in time for people in the UK. And then they get rolled, and they do it in like kind of kamikaze fashion to an extent, with a bad run out. Stokes and Root both out sweeping balls that pitched on the stumps, when arguably that wasn't the way to go at that point in the game. And Bairstow batting like a bit of a walking wicket. So optically it looks bad, and like, let's make no bones about it as well. England played really, really bad cricket today, and they played really, really bad cricket yesterday. But take a longer lens view to this. England generally aren't playing bad cricket. They're generally playing quite good cricket. And like before the series, I think I predicted 4-1. Maybe I predicted 3-1 with a draw. And I still, everything that we've seen so far, I think is somewhat in line with what I expected. DJ, I'd be interested to hear from an India point of view whether you've been surprised by England in any way. I mean, obviously there's that mad comeback in the first match, which feels quite a long way away now, and then they've been absolutely destroyed. You've sort of seen the spread of outcomes is colossal.
No, that's a good question, because I was just thinking while you were talking about that. I think before Stokes took over, England had won 1 test match in 17, 19. Or there was a
17,
streak
yeah.
where 17 test matches. Since then, they've won 14 out of 19 or something. It's quite an impressive record in a way. That said, even after the first test, I know probably the media was all over baseball and how it's great and all of that stuff, but I don't think there was a massive sense of panic, at least from us, because it was a good innings. It was a great innings, once in a lifetime innings, I think, from Ollie Pope. But if he hadn't been dropped twice, the game could have been over without England even reaching parity, right? So, and it's what Ashwin said, who obviously wasn't there on days 3 and 4, or he was there on day 4 towards the end. It's what he said, that we weren't panicking even when it was 200 for 2, because the way England play, it's high risk, high reward. It's exciting cricket. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's exciting to watch because there's something always happening there. I think they've batted 90 overs as their biggest innings, which was his 3rd innings in the first test. But this was 70 overs in the first innings here. It's exciting because they've pushed the game forward so quickly. It's not like the problem with that, though, is that it gives the opposition so much time to set the game up, almost, because you would otherwise get those runs and I think there's a stat somewhere which says England are getting past scores, they're just getting them quicker. And I think some of the irritation, I think, around baseball from opposition teams, Australians and Indians particularly, is the chat that comes after, the bravado, and there's no need for any of that. They never use the word baseball, to be fair to them. They all talk about intent, but there's no need to say if you get 600, we're going to go and chase them. I mean, obviously, you can't say that we're not. But why don't you just come out with a non-committal answer? I'm sure these guys have media training, which will just tell them something like, "We'll see what happens," and just sit on the fence a little bit. I mean, there's no harm in that. And I think that's part of the problem. It's become so extreme that belief in yourself, which you should have as an elite sportsman, of course you should have it. You could hear Shane Warne when he was on commentary saying Australia can chase 800. I remember that, and it used to be absurd, but obviously they have that belief. But there's no need for you to express that constantly, because it sets you up for this, because the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And that's where baseball is left, this English team. Again, a term not of their own making. I think the Crick Info podcast came up with this. Andrew...
Miller.
Yeah, Andrew Miller. So
What I'm hearing there, DJ, is that you don't think that Jaiswal's innings was inspired by Jaiswal, by Bazball.
no, but we will give England credit for the victory. I think they definitely deserve it.
Yes.
Um,
You're
because
welcome.
they clearly been inspired by Jadeja's run out, duck it. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, honestly. Some of the stuff and it's unnecessary in the midst of a test match, because just it needs to be probably just taken down a notch and let them just do what they need to do. And I don't think Ben Stokes will ever take a backward step, and that's fine. But the sensibility around cricket, it's the Joe Root shot. It's not the shot itself; it's the timing of the shot. If you're 450 and you're going to do that because you're going to go past the Indian score, that's okay at that point. But there's no need to do that when you're 200 runs behind the game. When you're one of the best players to have ever played the game, in my view, just knocking hundreds out for fun, double hundred in the last series, top scorer in the last series, just a brilliant batter. But I don't know, it's.
Well, at the moment, that shot, DJ, has been coined as the worst shot of all time, which is just not true, is it? Like, let's be fair, like that. Literally, the headlines this morning, the worst shot in Test match history of all time. You're just like, you're taking the piss.
We've had Rishabh Pant play for us, so there's been plenty of that. So I'm sure he's got good competition.
I just want to say thanks to Girish, who has sent us a super chat, which is obscuring Ross's face on YouTube right now. He says having good pitches is the way to go for India. On good pitches, India's superior bowlers have been head and shoulders above. Also, India is churning out some incredible batters who are stepping into gaps beautifully. And I think that actually is a pretty good summation of the series we've seen so far. We saw that, a little bit of an aberration from Ollie Pope, a once in a lifetime innings. I think you called it, DJ, and I think I said that myself in the first test, which transformed the direction of that match. But I think we've had 14 days in this series. You could probably argue that India have won 11 with that formula. They played on good pitches, they batted well, and they've used their superior bowling to limit England. And even when England do quite well, as they did on day 2 of this match, we talked about this at length yesterday, Ross, and if people want to listen to what Ross and I thought about it, do go back and listen to that podcast. But India were able to change their plans, bowl a little bit differently, and effectively terminate England's fight back before lunch.
But did you think England consistently underachieve in their first innings? And why is that?
So I think there's a tactic, and I think this is, if you're looking at what Bazball is, I think they're basically saying to themselves that we want to bat for about 90 overs and we want to score as many runs as possible in 90 overs. They're kind of turning their innings into a limited overs contest, and I think I'd give a bit more credit to the Indian bowlers here in that against some teams that has worked quite well, where plans have been inflexible and England have just relentlessly scored runs, still bowled out in about 90 overs, but doing it at fives. Whereas in this series, quite a few times we've seen England start really well, and then India change their game plan, find an extra gear. That might be Kuldeep Yadav, as it was in the first innings of this test, or it could be Jasprit Bumrah bowling
or Siraj
reverse swing, or Siraj,
yeah.
And that I think speaks to the quality of the India team as much as it does the England side. I think England have done quite well to score 250 in 5 out of 6 innings. I'd have said for the whole series, my over under for England scoring 250 would have been 5. So with 2 tests to go, they've met my expectations batting wise. Ross, you look like you got something to say.
Yeah, I think Dinesh in the live chat's kind of said this is the weakest India team England will play in the tour. Things are going to get tougher from here. They've still got absolutely staggering players, India, right? And if you look at the 11 that England are rolling out, and as much as Tom Hartley took 7 for in the first game, you've got Tom Hartley, you've got Rian Ahmed. Like these aren't Graham Swan, they aren't Monty Panesar in that space, right? And I think that when people start comparing when England last won in India, which does happen quite often, I think there's a little bit of this, why aren't England winning in India? And it's just like that part for me that's such a leap.
There's no point. there's no point saying what England need to do is play like Peterson and Cook from 2012 because they're Root aside, who's been a failure, and I think you can justly criticise Root. There isn't another player of their caliber, or Jonathan Trott's caliber, or Strauss's caliber, or Ian Bell. Or,
you've got Stokes in there, but Stokes can't just do it all, right? And I think that there is just a little bit of just understanding the lay of the land. Like, you are away in India, which is notoriously difficult to go and win in, whichever country you're from, even Australia, who could go and struggle in India, right? And I just think that sometimes the managing expectations is really quite poor for England fans on it. And I think when you look at this India side, regardless of who they put out, I just think there's some staggering talent that they do have. And as you said at the top of the show, right, Sarfraz Khan coming in is no mug, right? There's no bit. Jarrell, you saw him, he literally got bounced by Mark Wood, stood there and flicked it over the keeper's head, just like, yeah, no, this is just how I play cricket, mate. And it's that talent that I just think people just continuously underestimate.
And I think what adds to this as well is the point that DJ was making, in that England go and give interviews after the end of play where they say things which on the face of it look delusional. Now, I think they're doing that to like create a kind of siege mentality thing in a way whereby they are the only people they by saying things like that in that dressing room, it will make it feel like they're the only ones that believe in each other, and I think that strengthens their kind of belief in the whole process, and it does give them the freedom to play. But from the outside of that dressing room, you can see why it's hilarious to fans of Australia, India, or any other country when this sort of thing happens, because England have, I don't think the England team will care that much, to be honest. They're probably going to say some crazy stuff in the press conferences in the next few days about how they were on top after that 2 days and got a bit unlucky
and all of that.
Yeah, that's probably what they'll say. But for England fans, particularly people who really live and breathe it, they're the ones that have been left in the shit. It's Barry from Brentford, Ross, that now has to deal with Ben Stokes and Ben Duckett running their mouths in press conferences. DJ, anything final from you before we wrap up the show?
One question I have from an Indian perspective is, obviously baseball is live free, die young, have a beautiful corpse, basically, right? When do the consequences kick in, if ever? Are there any consequences to playing in this way, or is this a management that just gives players free rein to go and do what you need to do, and there's never any consequences for it? Because I mean, if an Indian player had done that, other than Rishabh Pant, probably at 2-4 for 2.
Serious answer, I don't think on the batting side ever. I think that they'll continue to play this way, and I think probably they've built a body of evidence that suggests that it's better for these players. Now, you might find in a few years that there are younger players that should be breaking into the team who play a different way, and then you might have a situation where somebody who isn't Bazball, the next Alistair Cook, let's say, comes along, isn't a Bazball player but should be playing Test cricket, and you might get a little bit of tension there. But with these players, I don't think it'll ever happen. Where I think there's from a technical cricket point of view, where I think there's some questions to be answered is around, clearly they need to think about what they do differently, and maybe that is picking an extra bowler or something like that, because over the series so far, England have actually struggled to take the wickets that they need quick enough to put India under pressure, or for few enough runs to put India under pressure. So there is an element of this that, although this looks like a spectacular disaster from a batting point of view, and in many ways it is after that initial 202 partnership, India also scored 450 for 14, and you can't win a test match anywhere if you're.
And they did it quickly as well, right?
850 for 14, sorry, over the two innings.
They did it really quickly.
Yeah.
That's, I think.
But that's the point. It's not just one gear, because I think they kept pointing out it was Jaiswal was 18 or 50, because he saw the spell from Anderson out, saw the spell from Wood out, and then unleashed. And Ben Stokes is really good at that. Like, if you remember his greatest innings, Headingley, he went nowhere for hours and hours, and then just unleash. It's that ability to switch gears, and he did the same thing at Lords as well last year. But I think that seems to be missing a little bit, and that's obviously the opposition view of things.
Yeah, I think it from a strategy point of view for most of the England players, and I think you can take Stokes out of that, and probably you can take Root out of that, and you can probably take Stokes out of it. That there is an advantage in just giving them one task to do because they're not necessarily the world's best players, and it clearly works for them. Like Ben Duckett is scoring a lot of runs quite quickly. He gets out a lot. Like he doesn't have long innings in terms of balls faced, and if you take that dismissal rate and remove the aggression, you probably find that you've got Rory Burns. And that isn't where England want to be. So I think it's a bit unfair to maybe use Duckett as the example in a match where he got 150 and then was run out. But I think you could say the same for Crawley. I think Pope probably simplifying his strategy helps. Bairstow for sure. Aside from whatever else is happening with Bairstow, when he has a simple game plan, he's a much more productive batter than when you give Bairstow the choice of what to do, because I don't think he's that good at choosing. Roth, final words from you, and then we'll wrap up the pod.
Yeah, I think just coming back to what I said earlier, right? It's 2-1 to India. The series is not over. This team as well has shown their resilience on more than one occasion to come back from difficult situations. So I don't think this is a case of just kind of writing this England team off and Bairstow has to retire. Jimmy Anderson's 41, he's got to go. You got all that kind of stuff. Like there's going to be so much hyperbole that does come out. I think it is just a case of going, look, you've lost a test match to a better team. They really, really played well. Rohit and India's kind of team management will feel really confident around some of the bits they've put in play here, and this England side will need to react to that. And I still think they've got the capability to do so. But I think Jackie and DJ, you've highlighted the issues that England do have. I think in the bowling department, right, we do need to be a bit stronger. But actually, if you're over 6 foot tall in England, you get told that you're bowling pace. You're not bowling spin, so you don't have a high release point that you need to take wickets in India. That's just not going to happen. And whatever else, right? And I just think that, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater on this occasion. Let's see what kind of comes. And there's plenty of golf to be played in between the next test match, and there's an awful lot of cricket to be played still. So I'm going to hold out a bit of hope that this gets to 2-2 and then we have an unbelievable decider, because I think that is what entertaining cricket should be, I think, on this front. So and let's hope that the team management do a classic India and make it all about the selectors, because we know that happens when India start playing well, and Jasprit Bumrah gets dropped.
Rested. Yeah.
Cool. Right. Last comment we'll read out, and it's a good one because it says that I'm right. That's from Vic on YouTube, who says, "Spot on, Jack. Playing like Dravid or Pujara is not easy and needs skill. So many pundits miss that." And I think there is an element of that from the England side, at least. Thanks very much for listening and watching, everyone. Last reminder, do make sure you're clicking like and subscribe. You can find DJ and his podcast by, I guess, just searching Edges and Sledges on Google or Spotify or iTunes or YouTube. And I'd recommend you do that. I'm sure that their wrap up will be...
You'll have the unfiltered version on the other one.
Well, we're tuning in. And we'll be back. We'll do a Between the Tests episode at some point in the next few days. So see you later, everyone. Goodbye.
Cheers, DJ.
Thanks, guys.